Hey everyone, welcome. This is Jason Clemens, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We are live right here from the Rock Health and Wellness Center studios in Lubbock, Texas. We're on 98.7 Walk by Faith, 1420 AM, streaming on 987radio.com. We're on social media tonight. All of them are working, I think. Let's see. Streaming. We should be good to go. We're out there in the world, bringing you health on this beautiful evening. Hope everybody had a great day today. We had a great busy day at the Rock Health and Wellness Center. We started it early. What is today? Wednesday. Yeah, we started early this morning, and we're still at it. And we've been solid busy all day long, and had some new patients, had lots of shockwave stuff going on, lots of adjustments going on. It's a good day to be at the Rock, so I'm excited about it. Excited about what we did, and I'm excited about the show tonight because we're going to continue with that article that we started last night about vitamin D. Just mentioned I mentioned it to you last night, and we're going to go through it tonight. There's a couple of articles we can look at, and then I want to get to some topics that we talked about today, and just. And I might actually I'm gonna do the vitamin D first, and then I'll get to some of the comments because that's where we picked up last night. So speaking of vitamin D, if you guys need supplements and you want to get them from Standard Process, you can order them on therock.standardprocess.com. Therock.standardprocess.com. You can order them. You can have them shipped right to your house, and it's a good company. If you need any help with any of them, if you want to know anything about them, then let me know and I'd be glad to help you out. But that's something if you want to just get your own supplements and you want to get them from a good quality company, then you can do that at Standard Process. Just go to therock.standardprocess.com and you can get your supplements there. And I hope you guys had a chance last night to go watch the Blue Zones. We talked about that last night on the show, and I highly recommend it. Really cool stuff, lots of information from it. I broke it down one time. Need to find my notes on that, but I'm also thinking about I need to go back and just break it down again. Just go back through it. So there's just some good. That's good. That's real stuff. You want to talk about evidence-based medicine? That's like evidence-based right there. It's like these people are living to be 100 years old, and they're standing right there in front of you. That's evidence. And it's like, what did they do to get that? And you say, well, because I've had people tell me, like, I don't want to live to be 100 years old, and it's kind of like, well, do you want to live to be tomorrow? You want to make it to tomorrow, and if you make it to tomorrow, then it's kind of like, well. Do you want to make it to the next day? And if you just keep making it to the next day and the next day and the next day, then maybe you can make it to 100. And then if you make it to 100, you'll be like, I probably want to live the next day. So yeah, good stuff. The Blue Zones is what it was called. So yeah, hang on a second. I'm getting some information, and I don't know why. Getting some feedback right here. Hang on a second. Let's make sure everything is working like it's supposed to be working. I haven't noticed this problem before, but apparently we got a volume problem. And just want to make sure that everything is turned up as much as it's supposed to be. I think it's working, but yeah, okay. I'm just going to keep at it. Maybe if I talk right into the mic, maybe it'll make sure that it stays enough. I don't know why. I haven't changed anything, and everything seems to be working on my end. But maybe for some reason we're just a little bit lower than we should be. So maybe I'll try to get you some volume out there so that it's working a little bit better. So let's get into this article that we had for last night. And this one right here. High dose vitamin D, clinically isolated syndrome, typical of multiple sclerosis. That is the article. And you know, I've been taught, and I think this is true stuff, that multiple sclerosis is away from the equator, low vitamin D problem. So is ALS, and then we can. There's a lot of that going. Sorry, I'm getting some text in as I'm talking right here, but high dose vitamin D. Yeah, there it is right there. So high dose vitamin D in clinically isolated syndrome, typical of multiple sclerosis, the DELAY MS randomized clinical trial. Journal of the American Medical Association, April 22nd, 2025, volume 333, number 16. That's what we are at right here. This is Eric Thalvinot, MD, PhD, and 30 more authors. The study cites 32 references. The objective of the study was to evaluate the efficacy of high-dose cholecalciferol, vitamin D, as monotherapy, as a single therapy in reducing multiple sclerosis disease. It was double-blind, randomized controlled trial, trial in 36 multiple sclerosis centers in France. So it's pretty good study, and they're trying to find out if vitamin D helps it, and yeah, so I'm getting all kinds of stuff tonight. It's pretty cool. The study aimed to evaluate the adverse events of and efficacy of vitamin D as monotherapy in patients with recent clinically isolated syndrome, CIS, typically found in MS patients. The patients were aged 18 to 55 years with CIS diagnosis and brain MRI. 303 patients were randomized to receive oral vitamin D of 100,000 IU or placebo every 2 weeks for 24 months. This is 7,143 IUs daily. So these guys are getting some high dose vitamin D. Medical visits occurred at a baseline. Each visit, patient underwent brain and spinal cord MRI. Neurologists assessed patient's disability and expanded disability status scale. Primary outcome of the measure was disease activity, defined as occurrence of relapse and or MRI activity and new and or contrast enhancing lesions over 24 months of follow-up. Patients with serum vitamin D levels greater than 100 nmol per liter, 40 ng/ml. That's what you'll get on your blood work. When you get your blood work, most of the time you'll get ng/ml, nanogram per milliliter. And let me just double check that I have that right. I don't want to mislead you or anything, but because that's there's two different ways that you can get that. And let me make sure, I don't know which one let me find my other blood work right here. I know I've got it on here somewhere. But yeah, 40. So the answer really is your blood, if you look on your blood work, is it 40? Is your vitamin D at 40 or is it not? And if it's not, if it's below 40, when it comes out on your blood work, then I would present for your consideration that you want to get it up. I don't have it right here at the front. Here's one of them. Let me see if I've got it. Because I've got so many of these, but yeah, I don't have it right there. But that's what we're looking for. We're trying to get it to 40. That's what you'll get here. Key points from this article. MS typically starts with acute episodes involving the central nervous system, such as optic neuritis, inflammation of the optic nerve, transverse myelitis, inflammation of the spinal cord, or brainstem syndromes. Term as a clinically isolated syndrome, CIS, although clinically isolated syndrome does not always convert to MS. So you start off with a problem, and if that problem persists, then you end up with a diagnosis of MS, is what the article is trying to say. Female sex, obesity, smoking, Epstein-Barr virus infection, and vitamin D deficiency are risk factors for multiple sclerosis. I just get people still to this day, and I'm not a multiple sclerosis expert by any means, but I still get people to this day that will tell me, they have MS, and I'm like, and it's like it's genetic, and I'm like, I don't think it's genetic. I think it's expression of environment. I think we got ourselves in the wrong environment, and because we have ourselves in the wrong environment, then we're not expressing ourselves properly. And so we need to get ourselves in the right environment, meaning from a chemical standpoint and a nutritional standpoint, we need to get ourselves in a position to where we can actually have enough nutrients in order to express health. That's what we need to do. If female obesity, smoking, Epstein-Barr virus, and vitamin D deficiency are risk factors for MS. Vitamin D deficiency is a risk factor for MS and is associated with risk of disease activity. Low vitamin D is a risk factor. Vitamin D deficiency is a risk factor for MS. It's like, I mean, are y'all getting that? Do you hear me? Do you hear me on that one? It's like, wait a minute. What if I have low vitamin D, I can manifest MS? But if I don't have low vitamin D, I won't manifest MS? And so if you've got MS, what has happened to you? You put yourself in an environment that was incongruent with health. Are you following that line of thought? Yes. Vitamin D induces immune regulation, decreases differentiation of T and B cells, promotes regulation subsets. That's kind of an important, that's kind of a thick sentence right there. But it's talking about the immune response. Vitamin D increases and supports your immune system. It's very important. So here's the findings. During the 24-month follow-up, disease activity was less frequent in the vitamin D group, 94 patients, 60.3%, compared to the placebo group, 109 patients, 74%. The median time to disease activity was 432 days in the vitamin D group versus 224 days in the placebo group. So if your immune system is working better, you don't get sick as much. What they're saying is that disease activity was less frequent in the vitamin D group. It's less frequent in the healthy people. Disease activity is less frequent in healthy people. It's like, hey, no kidding. It's like, why? We know that, right? It's not news. It's in the American Journal. This is the Journal of the American Medical Association who put this out right there. But they're the ones that are saying it, that disease activity was less frequent in the vitamin D group. And if you said, well, the people that take vitamin D are healthier, then it would be the same thing as saying disease activity was less frequent in healthy people than it is in less healthy people, which makes total sense, right? All three secondary MRI outcomes reported significant differences favoring the vitamin D group versus the placebo group. You're talking about MRI activity, new lesions, and contrast-enhancing lesions. All three secondary MRI outcomes supported significant differences favoring the vitamin D group. MRI outcomes were significantly better in the healthy people. Again, same thing. Oral high-dose cholecalciferol reduced disease activity in clinically isolated syndromes in early relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis. So here's the conclusion of the article. Oral cholecalciferol, 100,000 IUs every 2 weeks, significantly reduced disease activity in clinically isolated syndrome and early relapsing MS. MRI activity occurrence of new enlarging lesions on follow-up MRI scans were significantly reduced in the vitamin D group compared with the placebo group. This randomized clinical trial shows that high-dose cholecalciferol monotherapy initiated within 90 days after the diagnosis of CIS strongly suggestive of MS reduced disease activity significantly compared with placebo. Now, here's something we could break down, because I love reading these things, because it's just like if you read the sentence and you hear what they're trying to say, and then you read the sentence again and you're like, wait a minute, say that sentence differently. And it's easy to do, and I'm not being critical of the people that put the article together at all. I'm simply saying it's when you're the when you're the second one to come along, it's way easier. But if you just read that again, and then read that sentence again, and then just read that sentence again, the randomized clinical trials showed that high-dose vitamin D initiated within 90 days after diagnosis of CIS. Why? Why would you initiate it 90 days after you get sick? Of course, in the medical world, that's what they're doing, but it's like, why wouldn't you initiate it right now? Why wouldn't you say, hey, there is a certain amount of vitamin D that I need in order to stay healthy? And why wouldn't you do that right now? Why would you wait until, it's like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Because you change your oil in your car, like eventually, I mean, now these new cars, you don't change it for a whole year, but it's kind of crazy. But eventually you're going to change your oil in your car before your engine blows up. You're going to try to keep your coolant, your radiator coolant, whatever, in your levels where they're supposed to be before your engine blows up. You don't want to wait till your engine blows up and then add coolant. That doesn't even make any sense, right? But that's what's happening. If they're saying, hey, once these people get diagnosed with this, what are they calling this? The CIS, clinically isolated syndromes. Once they get diagnosed with them, and you will give them high doses of vitamin D. In the wellness world, we've been using high doses of things for a long time, and it's only high doses if it's relevant to or related to low doses. I know sometimes I say things and you're like, this boy is nuts. Yes. Okay. How do you know 5,000 IUs is high if you've never taken vitamin D before? How do you know 10,000 IUs of vitamin D, taking 10,000 IUs of vitamin D every day is high if you've never taken it before? You don't. You don't know anything about it. If someone says, hey, are you taking vitamin D? Nope. Here, you should take some. How much? Well, 10,000. Okay. You don't know that other people take 500 and other people take 1,000 low, and it's like, oh, well, that's now you're taking a high dose, right? But it's only because it's related to somebody else that came along and took a low dose. But what is the difference? What is the difference? Where do we get those things? And what I've discovered is that a lot of times we get them from this. We get those things from this continuum of disease and then total health. And a lot of times the dosage has been set to keep you just above getting disease. So it's like we're going to set the dosage just above getting disease. So if you need, let's just take a number. Let's just say because our number is 40. when our vitamin D gets to above 40, then it's beneficial, right? So let's just say your vitamin D level is 10. And if it drops below 10, there's a really good chance that you're going to get rickets or whatever. You're going to have some sort of disease process below that. And it doesn't have to be just vitamin D. It can be vitamin C or it can be any other vitamin as far as that's concerned. So if it's below that, then you're going to end up with a disease. So what the dosing relative value is, it's dosed to keep you just above disease. Now, tomorrow is my 32nd wedding anniversary. And I can promise you, for 37 years, I have not been trying to stay married just above divorce. Right? That has not been my goal. It's not been my goal to just be just a little bit better than Leslie kicking me out of the house and dumping me and running off with somebody else. Right? That's not been my goal for the last 32 years. With my limited skill set, my goal has tried to be the best husband that she could possibly have, and the best friend that she could possibly have, and the best dad that she could have possibly picked for her children. That's what my goal has been. I have fallen short lots of days in there, but at least I've been trying to go. It's like in football, we would always call it playing not to lose or playing to win. And there is a difference between those two things. And I know you guys that are watching this show are playing to win. You really are. You're like, no way, I'm not playing not to lose. We're trying to blow the top off of this thing. Like right, we're trying to win. It's like we're trying to play this game. We're running this race to win it. We're not just trying to finish it. We're trying to win it. So that's basically what we're saying right there is everything that gets over 40. I think my vitamin D level last I checked was 79. I was looking for it a while ago, but I couldn't find it. But I'm pretty sure that's what it was. It's like, yes, I don't want to play down here. I don't want my numbers to be down there. And when it comes to volume, that's what we're talking about. Like volume is important to make sure that you have enough of it to play to win. And what they're saying is, hey, look, if you're above this level, you won't get this disease that's a vitamin D deficiency disease. But you might get some of these other diseases. But as soon as you, and let's name them, because it's like, what are those other diseases that they're talking about? Let's go back up to the top and see what they were saying is CIS, okay? MS typically starts with acute episodes involving the central nervous system, such as optic neuritis, inflammation of the optic nerve, transverse myelitis, inflammation of the spinal cord, or brainstem syndromes termed a clinical isolated syndrome. So now they've got clinically isolated syndromes, and that typically will convert themselves into MS. Not always. So if we start with these acute episodes involving the central nervous system, which is the thing that we work on every single day, right? In wellness, we've got to have a good central nervous system function, and we want to make sure that it's free from interference, which we call subluxation. So we don't want to have any interference in our nervous system. So now vitamin D is important to us. It's important for us but here's the things: the optic neuritis, the transverse myelitis, these CIS problems, right? So what we're graphing here is we're graphing the CIS problems. The CIS problems are in this range. Like you get these problems, and what does the article say? Is it says if we go above that, come down here to conclusions. Oral vitamin D, 100,000 IUs every 2 weeks, significantly reduced disease activity in CIS, clinically isolated syndromes. Every 2 weeks, significantly reduced the activity of those syndromes we just talked about. So what if you just stayed above that level? Would it be fair to say that if you stayed above that level, then you would significantly reduce those diseases anyway? Right? That's the truth. That's why this race for MS and all this stuff. It should start with the health and wellness. Every one of those things, the March for Diabetes and the March for ALS and the water dump the water on your head challenge for ALS and all those things that they do to raise all that money, they ought to start and they ought to give every single person vitamin D. It's like, get out in the sunshine and get the vitamin D. And if you don't get out in the sunshine, then take your vitamin D. It will change it right there. We got to take a break. I've already reached the break. You guys stick around with us. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. We'll be right back right after these messages. I'm not trying to be insensitive at all towards all those things, but there's a lot of it that I think is just. I think a lot of it is hogwash. And if we were really serious about MS, then we would. And I've got multiple MS patients that I take care of, and I've got patients that tell me they're like, I've got MS, and I'm like, okay, well, let's get rid of it. And they just look at me and they're like, I can't get rid of it. And I'm like, why can't you get rid of it? Like, I've got articles, I've got research papers, double-blind, clinically controlled trials with all of this research that says that you could highly reduce your MS. Here's the Wall protocol right here. This is Dr. Wall on the back of it. I don't know if you can see that or not, but the top one is her in the her in the wheelchair, and the bottom one is her riding her bike, and it just says it right here. What was her deal? Jam-packed with science, nutrition, and lifestyle advice, the Wall Protocol is an essential resource for anyone who not only wants to reverse the debilitating symptoms of their disease, but wants to thrive to the fullest. Terry Walls is a clinical professor of medicine at the University of Iowa, Carver College of Medicine in Iowa City. She has made it her mission to spread the word about the Walls Protocol through the book, her lectures, her websites, and food as medicine classes. She lives in Iowa City. She's a 5-time New York Times bestselling author, award-winning writer who has written more than 60 books. She had MS. She was in a wheelchair with MS. And then she got herself out of that wheelchair because she got back to doing healthy things. That's what those people in the blue zones are doing. They're skipping the wheelchairs. They're going all the way from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and they're staying out of wheelchairs. They're staying off of walkers. They're staying off of all these things. Why? Because they're working and they're eating right and they're working and they have a plan for their life. Like if they can do it in Okinawa and they can do it in Nicoya, Costa Rica, and they can do it in Icaria, Italy, or Greece, or wherever that was, and they could do it in California, for all places, then why can't we do it in Lubbock? Why can't we do it in Texas? Why can't Texas be the healthiest place on the planet? It can be. It can be the healthiest place on the planet. Hang on one second. Okay, everybody, we're back. This is Life with Jason Clemens, DC. And we're talking about vitamin D. We're going through this article. During the break for you guys on the radio, I mentioned the Walls Protocol. It's a book. You can search it. You can go to the internet. Walls, WAHLS. The Walls Protocol: How I Beat Progressive MS Using Paleo Principles and Functional Medicine. Functional medicine. It's like functional neurology, when in reality it ought to just be called medicine and neurology. It's like, yeah, okay. Patients who benefited the most from vitamin D were those without spinal cord lesions at diagnosis, with severe vitamin D deficiency, and with normal BMI at baseline. Okay, patients who benefited the most from vitamin D were those without spinal cord lesions at diagnosis. Right. You don't want spinal cord lesions. How did you get spinal cord lesions? Some physical, chemical, or mental, emotional stress somewhere along the way is how you got those spinal cord lesions. Right? That's what happened is you got yourself in an environment that was incongruent with health, and then you ended up with some lesions. So you didn't do quite as good. The people that had severe vitamin D deficiency, the patients who benefited the most with vitamin D were those without spinal cord lesions with severe deficiency. Yes, that's pretty obvious. This is what you get if you guys have ever been in, like, when you go to a place, like I've been to multiple, and I'm not saying anything bad about multi-level marketing, but I've been to multiple multi-level marketing supplement sales places. And a lot of times when you do that, you'll get somebody that was deficient in nutrients, and you'll give them the nutrients, and they'll have these amazing results. And then they will sell the idea that it was that particular brand of nutrient that caused that result. And that's really not the way that it worked. What this is saying right here is the people with severe vitamin D deficiency benefited the most from vitamin D. And you don't have to be magna cum laude to understand that, right? If you have vitamin D deficiency, you're going to benefit quite well from vitamin D. And that's what happens. It doesn't matter which vitamin D you got. It doesn't matter what company it came from. The important part is that you got it, right? And with a normal body mass index. So that BMI at baseline. So if we can keep our weight under control, we got a better chance of not being sick. Neither kidney failure nor moderate or severe hypercalcemia calcium levels were reported during follow-up. So we don't know. Cholecalciferol could represent an inexpensive therapeutic alternative with low risk of adverse events after a CIS, especially in populations with limited access to disease-modifying therapies. Yes, you can go. It doesn't matter how much money you got or what neighborhood you live in. You can get yourself out of a lot of this stuff. Remember what we talked about last night in Nicoya, Costa Rica? They were eating what? They were eating ground up corn. They were cooking it a specific way. They were eating black beans, and they were eating squash. And they were getting the nutrients that they needed from that triad of things. That's not the only thing they ever ate, but that was a big part of what they were doing, right? And they were getting their vitamin D from being outside in the sunshine. And if you go down to look where Costa Rica is and see where is related to the equator, and it's not that far away. So they're getting a lot of sunshine down there. Patients who benefited the most from vitamin D were those with severe vitamin D deficiency, which was less than 30, less than 12 nanograms per milliliter. If your vitamin D is less than 12, that's low, and you really need to get that up. Last sentence: the low risk of adverse events and promising efficacy profile of high-dose vitamin D makes vitamin D an ideal candidate for future studies and an add-on therapy to improve the risk-benefit ratio of existing therapies. And then I've got 2 follow-up articles that I'm not going to get into them. I'll just read you the titles of them. But the 2 follow-up articles are this. Number 1, vitamin D status modulates the immune response to Epstein-Barr virus, synergistic effects of risk factors in multiple sclerosis. And the other article says vitamin D status predicts new brain magnetic resonance imaging, MRI activity in multiple sclerosis. And those were back from 2011 and 2013. So it's not new information. It's been going on for a long time. You get MRI changes with vitamin D status, and it helps the immune response. That's where we were going through. It's like going through the wintertime, making sure that your vitamin D levels are up, because you'll have a better immune response. So, all right. That's all I wanted to talk about on that. Okay. I had a question. I had a patient, Brandon, who works with us and and he works with us here in the office, but he also is going to take over at some point our Littlefield office. It'll be several years because he's on his way to chiropractic school. But Brandon was out at the office yesterday in Littlefield, and he was chopping down some of the weeds in front of the office, and somebody came by and asked the question, are you guys accepting new patients? And he said yes. And he said, do you take care of people that have neck fusions? He said, I'm really worried about that. I'm really worried about my neck fusion and I don't want it to get worse. And Brandon wasn't exactly sure how to answer it because he's kind of new to our office. He wasn't exactly sure how to answer that question. So we had a discussion about it today. And I just want to present for your consideration, and for any time you ever get a chance to have to answer that question, like, absolutely not are we going to mess up anything that has to do with a fusion. And I wanted to just show you a few pictures about just some of the people that we adjust that I've adjusted here recently. This is one of the people that I've adjusted here recently. This is 6. You can't see them because they're doubled up because they're on top of each other. But this is 6 screws and 2 rods in a person's spine right there. And so this person was in pain for 7 years, and because they had no hope because their surgeon told them you should never go to a chiropractor. And after 7 years of being in pain, she finally found our way to our office, and it's like she has improved. And we're doing a lot of work, and some days she comes in and you can just see the pain on her face. I don't even have to ask her how she's doing. I just look at her face, and I can just see it. It's just like some days it's just very, very painful, and some days she's doing much better. But we're doing all kinds of stuff around that cage, but we're not adjusting any of that part of her spine. I'm adjusting the joints above the spine all the way to the cervical spine. I'm adjusting the extremities. There's lots of ways into the nervous system. It's not just about back pain. I had a new patient today. He was so nervous about getting adjusted, and he came to the office and his wife had been here once before, and then he was a brand new patient, and he had some really bad spots. And he came in, and we walked into the adjustment room. We went through all of his exam. We went through all of his, we did his right eye and his reflex and all the stuff. They took his x-rays and all that sort of thing. And I sat down with him. I did his history. We talked about what was going on. And then we went into the adjustment room. I said, come on, let's go get you adjusted. And he was like, oh, he just started getting really nervous. And he was like, this is the part that really makes me nervous. And I was like, well, this is going to be a different experience. I'm going to get you adjusted. I didn't say I was going to pop your back. Right? I said I was going to get you adjusted. I can adjust the things on this desk right here. I can adjust my pins that are sitting here in front of me. I can adjust my shirt, like, and kind of and get my shirt right. I can adjust my phone, right? I'm going to adjust the way that your nervous system is working. I'm going to work on and try to work on and see if we can adjust your nervous system. But I never said I was going to pop his back, because that's the fallacy of chiropractic. People don't understand that. They think that you're going to pop everybody's back. That's what you do. You just pop backs. And I'm like, I didn't even pop his back at all. I didn't even start with his back. What I did is start with shockwave on his hip and his knee, because he was degenerative in his lumbar spine, and he started and he's degenerative in his hip, and he's degenerative in his knee. And I was like, okay, well, I have a tool that deals with that. And so I thought I'd go back tonight. I went back tonight and I pulled out some old X-rays of people that and then that are similar to some of the X-rays that we have on current patients that are responding really well to the shockwave treatment. But I just wanted to show you. I wanted to show you that one, and then I wanted to show you. Let me show you some of these other ones. This is another one. It looks very similar, but it's not. That now it's at a different level down below it, and so that's a different one right there. That with rods and screws in the low back. Person said, "I love your program that you do. Like, I really like what you do here." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not going to adjust that. Okay, I'm not going to get into that whatsoever." Here's one in the neck. This is a neck. I adjusted. Well, I adjusted one of these today. Not even close to adjusting that neck. Right? Am I going to go in there and adjust that neck at that fusion point? Let me see. No, I'm not going to go in there and touch that fusion. I'm not going to go in there and look at that plate and those screws and say that needs to move. Absolutely not. That's not going to happen. Did I adjust the cervical spine above it? Yes. Did I adjust the rest of the spine below it? Yes. Can we work on the eyes? Can we work on extremities? Yes, we can do all those other things. But we're not going to work on that particular area. Okay? And let me show you some of these of these hip joints that are responding really well to the shockwave. And this is one of those things that a person might think, if they went to an orthopedic surgeon, that they would need to have their hip replaced right there. I mean, we have established in the society today, we have established the sentence bone on bone. And we've established the definition of bone on bone. And it's not right. We'll say that. We'll say, well, I'm bone on bone and I need to have my hip replaced. Well, maybe that's a true statement. Maybe it is. But maybe it's not a true statement. Okay? And you may not have ever heard anybody say that, because it's so common. It's just so common. If someone says that, society has just accepted that definition, that when it says, oh, well, it's bone on bone, then why I just need to have my hip replaced. And I'm like, well, you got to understand, the reason you have your hip replaced is because it's not functioning properly. It's not because it's bone on bone. That's not the reason. The reason you have it replaced is because it's not functioning properly. There's a big difference between those two things. And the question is, the honest question is, can I get this hip to function better? Can I get this hip to function to the point where it doesn't hurt? That should be the question. And if I can't, can anybody? Can anybody get this hip that's bone on bone to function well enough that it doesn't cause any pain and it doesn't cause any malfunction in the movement of the hip at all? If we can, then you don't need a hip replacement. If we can't, and nobody can do anything about either one of those problems, then yeah, you probably have to get your hip replaced in order to solve that problem. And we're having some really good success with these type of hips. I'll show you another one. I'll show you another one that is very similar to the issue that we got going on. Let me find it. I got so many x-rays open right now. There it is. Okay. So let me move this over a little bit. Okay. This is the one I'm talking about right here. And this hip right there is degenerative. You could look at the left hip and there's space in between there. There's space in there. But on this one, there's not much space. And it's pretty much touching. We've lost all that space in between there. That would be one of those sentences that somebody would say that that's bone on bone. And I can tell you, with the shockwave therapy that we're doing on that hip, this person's doing much better, almost normal. After 3 or 4 or 5 visits, I don't even know what number we're on, but after 3 or 4 or 5 visits, this person is functioning almost normal. How long will they function? I don't know for sure. But I can tell you that in the week between the adjustments, they're functioning really well between the two. Because what are we doing? We're doing 3 things. Number 1, we're decreasing the inflammation in the joint. Number 2, we're increasing the blood supply to the joint, which is now bringing nutrients to the joint. Remember we've talked about for a year and a half, fuel and activation. We need fuel. The cells of the brain need fuel and activation. The cells of the whole body need fuel. Remember when last week when I lasered my thumb? Why did I laser my thumb? Because the laser fires the mitochondria, which increases the ATP, which gives the cell in my thumb more power. It gives it more fuel, gives it more energy. And so it gives the cell a chance to heal itself. It increases the healing time by lasering that thumb. Okay, what we're doing in these hips now is we're putting that shockwave on those hips that are bone on bone, and those people are getting decreased in their inflammation, increased in their fuel and activation, and now we're bringing new cells to the area. We're reestablishing, we're getting the body's healing ability to reestablish itself in that hip. I'm really interested to see how much better this person does, and then if we can get some post x-rays and see if we've actually built that cartilage back up in that hip. And even if we haven't, we still are keeping that hip functioning better. So that's just don't get me wrong. There's a time when that hip can get so bad that the only thing that you can do is get it replaced. That's true. But it's not always just because it says bone on bone. And if a surgeon looks at it and a surgeon says, well, you got to have a hip replacement, what the surgeon is trying to tell you is, I don't have any other tools to solve your problem than a hip replacement. And that's fair. That happens to me every day. It's like, look, maybe I don't have the tools to fix your problem, but maybe somebody else would have the tools to fix your problem. I had a patient say to me they had cancer. Somebody in their family had cancer, and they mentioned a place going to Canada and a place in Mexico. There's a chiropractor on Instagram that I saw that had a big brain tumor, that he ended up going to Mexico and getting his brain tumor reduced. And like now they say he doesn't have a brain tumor. and because of the treatment that he got while he was at this center in Mexico. And as I told the patient, I was like, it's sad that you got to go to Mexico to get that fixed, and because it's like you can't do it in the United States because it's not, the pharmaceutical company doesn't want you to go down there and fix that. And I'm not saying that everybody that goes down there gets their problem resolved. I'm simply saying that there may be a place outside of my office, most likely, that somebody has the tool to fix your problem. You go, your hip is hurting. You go to the doctor. The doctor takes an X-ray of your hip. They show you bone on bone in your hip, and they're going to be like, well, the only option you got is you're probably going to have a hip replacement because that's bone on bone. Do you get that? You get that might just be a sentence that the doctor says because the doctor doesn't have any other tools to fix your problem. But maybe someone else does have some tools to fix your problem. And I'm really, really interested to see how long we may eventually lose and have to have a hip replacement, but it might be a year from now or 3 years from now or 5 years from now before this person has to have a hip replacement. I don't know what that's going to end up being, but I can tell you that there's been definite change and increase in function since we've been working on it. I'll keep you up to date on that particular one. So you say, well, why? Okay, I get what you're saying. Like, why would I need to get adjusted if I've got a fusion in my neck or if I've got a fusion in my low back? What is it what is an adjustment? What are you trying to do that's going to help me to live better, right? And I just pulled up this little picture, and I just want, I'll show you this one first. This is a picture of a brain map. And when we brain mapped this person, what we got overactivity in the areas of the brain. You can see the different areas of the brain that have overactivity. And this is slicing the brain from the bottom of the brain all the way up. So this is the eyeballs down here. This is the lower part of the brain. And as we're moving across, it goes up. And then this is the very top of the brain at the top. So these scans are, as we move across and we do this brain mapping, we can see where we have activity that's outside of normal. Just like when they do your blood work, they're seeing, is your vitamin D level within normal range or is it not? Is your cholesterol within normal range or is it too high? Is your blood pressure within normal range or is it too high? Right? That's the same thing that we do with this map, and says, look, we've got activity that's too much activity in this area. So you may have a fusion in your neck. You may have a fusion in your low back. You may have an artificial hip or a knee or a shoulder or whatever your thing may be. It doesn't make any difference because what we're trying to do is get your brain to function within normal limits. So that's what we're going to evaluate is, can we get your brain functioning within normal limits? So, and remember this little guy. This is our homunculus. And our homunculus is a representation, remember, it's a representation of the number of neurons in the brain that are assigned to the body part. If you built a little man and you counted the number of neurons in the brain, and you built the little man based on the number of neurons in the brain that was assigned to that body part, that's what your little man would look like. He would have a big giant mouth and big lips. He would have gigantic hands, and everything else would be relatively small. He would have gigantic hands. And so it's like, I've got a fusion in my neck. Why would you adjust me? I would adjust you because you have interference in your nervous system. That's the only reason I adjust anybody. Why do you have interference in your nervous system? What causes that? Physical, chemical, and mental emotional stress. Okay? So, what can we do to help you? We can use your hands. I could just use your hands to increase your brain activity. We could put vibration on your fingertips. We could have you do motion with your hands. We could do all kinds of things with your hands. We could have you touch something. We could have you dribble a basketball or a ball. We could have you point a laser at something and move it around in a maze, or move your hand in some form or fashion. We could have you touch something and move. We could move your eyes, and we could move your hands without even ever touching your spine whatsoever. That would be a way that we could adjust a person that we, and the reason that we wanted to adjust them is to keep their brain firing as good as possible for as long as possible. So when that guy came by and said, hey, I'm really concerned about my neck, like it's fused, don't worry about it. Dr. Clemens is taking care of lots of people that have rods and screws and plates and all kinds of things in their neck, and you don't have anything to be concerned about, because we're a subluxation based office, and that's what we're going to try to do, is increase your brain activity and remove your interference. Hey, that's all I got for you tonight. I hope that was helpful. Hope you guys have a great evening, and I will see you guys tomorrow night at 6.